Hello everybody, welcome back to episode number 2 of our video series on how to keep our families safe while we use today's technology. I'm Scott, this is Jailene, and we're with Internet Safety Concepts. And we again are going to do some videos on information on empowering good choices when we use today's technology. And our goal, not saying we can't use it, just making sure we think about safety every time we do. So today's an important topic.
Yes.
Last one was an important topic, but this one is probably just as important.
I agree.
But something that I deal with when I train police officers, but when I work with schools and kids, this is the topic that comes up the most. Yeah, social media is a big part of it, but today we're going to talk about picture sharing.
Okay.
And I think it's so important that we have this conversation because especially two different generations, we might look at images differently, how they're shared, and just process all this information because of our age difference and what our experiences are. Now, before we get started, and before I ask Jailene her opinion on a couple things, please understand our opinion on this. Having a camera in our device, when used appropriately, is good stuff. I mean, when my kids were younger, I used to carry around a video camera bag, a 35 millimeter, and I used to struggle because I always wanted to capture memories.
Yep.
Now, I use my phone. Do you agree that that technology is a good thing?
Oh yeah, like I remember being followed around with a video camera when I was younger too, like, especially when we go to Disney and to Puerto Rico and stuff. So now having a small device just in your pocket is amazing.
And the quality of the pictures.
I know, it's awesome.
Awesome. So I don't think we're talking about not using it.
Correct.
And we're not talking about not taking pictures. I think the biggest concern we're going to be having today is picture sharing. And that's where it's good to have communication about this and talk about it. And picture sharing can be a good thing.
Yep.
Hey, I captured this memory with programs like Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat. We can share pictures and images. However, there are some ways that this can go to a dark side.
Yeah.
So give one example of how picture sharing can be a good thing.
Well, I guess like you said, sharing memories. So for me, having family far away, like in Florida, in Texas, in Boston, and Puerto Rico, using social media to share my pictures, to share my accomplishments with them is great. They're able to watch me graduate from college because of virtual picture sharing, and they're able to be a part of my everyday life with just a simple selfie.
Absolutely. And right now, in the pandemic we're in, things like Zoom and WebEx and Microsoft Teams and Google Rooms, there's a pro to having that capability of sharing images and stuff. So again, we're not saying it's all bad.
No.
But we do have to really be concerned about how it can go bad.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think because for my generation especially, we didn't grow up with this technology. My pictures when I was growing up was a 35 millimeter, or I'll even date myself, a Polaroid.
Yeah.
And a Polaroid, I always relate to in my presentations because part of me wants to go back to that Polaroid days. Do you have any idea why?
Because it's just one copy.
Okay, excellent. One copy, but also when you took the Polaroid, it came out and it developed in front of you.
Yes.
It took about 60 seconds. And we used to take it and we used to shake it. Like there's a song, shake it like a Polaroid picture. Well, that's what we used to do. You used to shake it to speed it up. But what I like about that 60 seconds is it's time to think, what am I going to do with this photo? Now, with today's technology, when we have it in the palm of our hand and we're connected to the world, so many kids that I've talked to, the first thing they tell me about a picture is, I wish I thought about it before I sent it. Or I wish I didn't send it. And I'm not saying they're all bad pictures or illegal, but just pictures that we regret sending them, regret sharing them, or who we share them with.
Yeah.
So when it comes to picture sharing, I think there's a lot of thought that has to go into it. And because we're so impulsive these days, maybe that's not what we're focusing on. We need to retrain ourselves a little bit on what we do with our pictures.
Okay.
So I think we're going to jump into sexting. That is something that we're going to have to talk about with this topic. And it might not be a comfortable topic for people to hear, but boy, it's an important one. But before that, I want to talk about the good or bad consequences that you think at your generation you can see from sharing a picture. So let's talk about the good. You talked about how it's with your family.
Yeah.
And that's not really consequences, that's just a proper use.
Right.
What would be a good consequence, a good result, you think, from sharing a picture?
Well, I think what we're doing is a good result, right?
Okay.
So us teaming up to share videos, to share any type of content, doesn't necessarily have to be just a picture, like our videos on TikTok and Instagram and even now on YouTube. That's a good result. We're getting a positive message across to our loved ones and to even complete strangers and people in stressful situations. We're doing our part to help others.
Okay.
So that would be a good consequence in my mind.
All right. Let me just add one of what I think is a good consequence. I think we underestimate. If we take a picture and we share a great memory or a great event on social media, and then 2 years later you get on your social media feed, hey, remember this from 2 years ago. You look at it and you go, I forgot all about that. What a great day that was. So it's not all terrible, but the good and the bad can follow us.
Yes.
So now we start to change gears a little bit. What can be a negative consequence from sharing a picture?
Well, if you take a nude picture and send it to the wrong person, and that could get all across your school campus. It could get to your employers. It could get to your family members. That's definitely something negative and definitely a really bad consequence in my eyes.
Okay, fair enough. Now, you mentioned nude, and what I think as parents we have to understand is how casually you mentioned that, because it's just part of the conversation. And I think as adults, I think we underestimate just how often it happens and how prevalent it is with certain people that use social media.
Yeah.
And what I hope one of our goals is today, parents have the conversation with their kids before it happens. Sit down and talk about picture sharing and the involvement that they do and what they do with their pictures, so it doesn't go bad, or if something does go bad or a mistake happens, they can immediately turn to their support system and say, what can we do? So I just want to talk about what I think is negative consequences, because I've worked with people in human resource departments who do the searches for jobs. I've worked with people on college scholarship committees. And when we ever talk about picture sharing, the first thing you brought up was nude. And we didn't prep this. I didn't tell her what to say or anything. I knew that was going to come up. I see red Solo cups as still having problems for kids in your era, and I think that's so wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
When someone in my generation sees a kid with a red Solo cup on social media, they automatically assume alcohol. And I don't think that's fair. But it's what we've learned and what's been ingrained to us. So a picture, we're going to talk about the nudes in a second, but there's so much more that can happen with an image in a negative light.
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, you have a video on TikTok and you're driving recklessly. And all of a sudden you go to apply for a job, and part of that job is driving, and someone sees how you behave behind the wheel of a car.
Right.
There could be negative consequences to it. So there's a lot that goes on to picture sharing that I'm glad we have this opportunity to talk, and I'm so glad we see things differently on this. I think the same goal, but we see it a little differently.
I think it's because even underage drinking is so part of our high school journey, right?
Okay.
It's a part of being invited to the cool house party. I mean, of course now with COVID, things are a lot different. But before COVID, you get invited to the cool house party and you just drank whatever was there, whatever's given to you. So it's almost like people are not thinking ahead about, is someone going to take a picture? Is my parent going to see it? Is my principal going to see it? Is my employer going to see it? Kids are not thinking that way. But a nude picture, because it's just so private and personal, that's just what our minds go to as young people. Okay. So that makes us think twice. But taking a picture, around people using drugs or around people drinking in a red Solo cup, or even just with the beer bottle, it doesn't make us think. It really doesn't. Even as a kid and having done some questionable things, I didn't think about that.
Okay. And I love that you just gave me a whole different perspective on it, because when I talk about picture sharing, I'm thinking all of it, but when I talk to students, maybe they're looking at it a different light. So that's why I always try to bring in the examples of what will a college scholarship committee see if they see that image. So we're going to talk about ways to prevent it, but now, because we don't want to, we like to keep these short and to the point, we are going to talk about a very important topic, and that's sexting.
Yes.
Now, we hear the term. Each state might have their own definition by laws they have. Sexting is sending the explicit photos over some kind of device. And unfortunately, I have been seeing these things since the inception, because when I was with the police department, we used to do forensics, and we started doing them right around this time when the cell phone technology of sharing pictures really took off. So we were seeing how out of control it was getting in the blink of an eye. So I've taken it seriously since day one, because I see the evidence, but I've also talked to so many kids about this. So before I give my opinion as the old man on this, what's your opinion on two things? Why do you think sexting is taken off so much, it's so prevalent. And as a young person, why aren't we at the time it's happening thinking about consequences?
I would have to say pop culture has a lot to do with it.
Okay.
And quite honestly, I think pop culture has always been driven by sex, drugs, and alcohol.
Okay.
Really, like nothing's really changed except for new artists have come about. But I think before you didn't have, like you said, the cell phones and the technology to send pictures that easily.
Okay.
But I really have to say it has to do with pop culture and wanting to be cool. And I think that the reason kids don't take it seriously and don't think about it in the moment is because of that. They want to be popular and they want to be cool. They don't want to be called, names and be bullied because they didn't do it. It's a lot about peer pressure and it's tough.
Do you think there's more peer pressure to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I do.
No.
I do. I think
appreciate your honesty on that.
It's all peer pressure. All of it. It is.
I've been at schools and kids have come to me and say, I get numerous requests per day to send, well, let's just use the terms, nude, dick pic, these terms that are online, because a lot of parents just automatically think a nude is just a young lady.
Yeah.
It's no longer that. It's all across the board, and it's something we have to be aware of. So when these young people tell me that I get requests numerous a day, I always go, well, what do? Do you block that person? Do you report them? And they go, no, I send them. And I go, why? And they go, well, they asked. And I really try to get people to, especially young people, to think about that differently, because we know there's consequences of our actions, both good and bad. And, I think back to when I was a teenager, and I'm the first to say it, I've said it numerous times, I'm glad this wasn't around when I was a kid. I really am. Because the impulsivity, and it's there, but now it follows us. So I can easily ask that question of why you think young people are doing it, but then I think back to when I was a kid and we did stupid things, not worrying about the consequence. But the stupid thing for my generation didn't follow me for on and on. I can sit here and tell you that when I was a teenager, I was an innocent, very good, well-behaved young man, and I never did anything wrong. There's nothing to prove me wrong.
Right.
Because of images and stuff, your generation might not have that luxury of saying, I made mistakes, they're in my past, because they can still come up in the forefront.
Exactly.
So that's why I think it's important that we talk about it. Now, when it comes to sexting, the sending of the pictures, there's a whole different level of consequences as well, too. Let me just talk about the laws, because each state, some states don't even have sexting laws, some do. It's very important, whatever state you're watching this from, please just do a Google search on what your state sexting law is, because sometimes there's laws that pertain to adults, and sometimes there's laws that pertain just to students.
Yeah.
Here in Connecticut, our sexting law, when it's deemed a sexting law, is only for people under the age of 18. So when people over the age of 18 share pictures, it's a whole different charge. And each state has something different with that. So we highly recommend you just talk to your local police department or school resource officer, or look it up through Google or Yahoo, and just find out what your laws are, because they're important to know. But for me, the consequences are what follows them. When relationships go bad or people get angry, they can take those private pictures and share them. One of the terms that we hear a lot is revenge porn.
Yep.
What do you think revenge porn? Explain in your opinion, what is revenge porn?
Well, it's basically what you were starting to say when, a relationship goes south, or sometimes even a friendship goes south. People will release the videos or photos that you shared with them to the public, whether that be on Facebook, Twitter, or even just texting them in a long message chain, and it'll just keep spreading from there.
There's documented cases.
Yeah.
I never want to research this, but unfortunately with our job, we research this.
Yep.
And there are cases that have been online for years, and those pictures won't go away. And people still have to deal with it. And sometimes they deal with it in a very healthy way.
Yep.
Unfortunately, sometimes they might need help or support to deal with it, because what I think people underestimate on sharing the pictures, especially those who do share it, if it goes wrong, it's not just two people, one person receiving it, one person sending it. Families get affected.
Yeah.
Relationships between parents and students get affected. Aunts and uncles it just affects everyone in the family. Then add on schools, coaches.
Yeah.
It can affect communities when these things go wrong. So I think it's important that when we use this technology, especially when it comes to sexting, we understand that there's serious consequences. So one of the things that I always tell students when it comes to sexting, and tell me if I'm wrong or give me some more advice and let me steer them differently. The first thing I always tell young people, and parents, guardians, aunts, uncles, support system, whoever you are watching this, have the conversation with your kids about this before it happens. And one of the things I always tell them is stop asking each other for these private pictures. It's the first thing. Our young people have so much pressure on them to excel at school and be the best person they can be and just keep growing. Then you add pressure of, hey, send me a nude. That's a lot of pressure on somebody. So one of the first things I recommend to kids is don't put that pressure on them. Am I fair to start that ball rolling? Is that?
Yeah, I think definitely, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it ending.
Okay.
Like I feel that so even celebrities put so much pressure on them to look a certain way and to be a certain way.
Okay.
So, I mean, while it's a great effort, and I wouldn't say stop doing that, I just think it's gonna, I don't know, like a different conversation needs to happen.
Okay.
So like, I agree with you saying we should have the conversation before, but what is it exactly is it that we're trying to say to our kids?
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. The first thing I say is you shouldn't be asking somebody for those pictures.
Okay.
Second thing is, and I know you're going to sign this as corny, so bear with me, is when they get asked for a picture, usually it's one-on-one via text message or something like that. I just challenge the kids, and I use that word a lot. I challenge them, say no. And here's why. I want you to see that person's reaction.
Okay.
If you ask me for a nude and I say no, and you come back and go, you know what, I apologize. I shouldn't have done that. That was wrong on my part. I should have more respect for you. We all make mistakes.
Right.
Young people have hormones going. We all get these urges. I get that. But if I say no and you go, oh, come on, no one's going to see it.
Right.
It's going to be private. It'll disappear. The way I plant that seed in young people is if they don't trust and respect the word no, how are you supposed to trust and respect them with one of your most private things? You're you. So I try to plant that seed that way. Am I off? Is it worth trying?
Yeah, I mean, I like that. Again, I never thought about it that way. But yeah, that's definitely the way to go, I think. Because you're right. You know, like if the person then begins to challenge you in return, that kind of raises a red flag. And I would also, with that, tell the child or teenager or adult to be confident in yourself when you say no. Be confident and know your worth when you say no.
And that can be challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all go through moments where we don't have that self-worth and our self-esteem isn't where it needs to be. Everybody, I don't care who you are.
But sometimes it's just typing N-O and you feel it.
It's a power.
It is.
It's empowering, and we underestimate that. And I'm sure there's people that are watching this and go, "That's not going to work," and it might not work in every situation. But it's one more tool in our toolbox.
Correct.
And when we talk to our kids about it ahead of time, we're empowering them. You have the right, because we have the right to say no. We have the right to say, not for me. You're not going to get that picture.
Right.
And I think the last thing I say to little kids when I empower them about this is, pictures don't disappear.
Yeah.
People might say to you, send it to me, no one else will see it. I guess for me, if someone says to me, send me a picture, no one else will see it, I'm already lacking their trust. Because I should automatically assume that no one else is going to see it. I trust you. But so many kids have told me, well, that's what they said to me. And it's a warning flag in my opinion. Trust me. Well, if we're talking, I should automatically be able to trust you.
Right.
So I really... Are we going to be able to prevent this from happening all the time? No. We both live in the real world. We know that. But there might be one young person watching who says, you know what, I can at least try that, and it might work.
Right.
Because that's where we've got to start to put a stop to it. And we do have to put a stop to this. It's just, can we realistically do that? I don't know.
I mean, no, I don't think that it'll end like I said, but I think it's important to seek help. When someone asks you, you can just say, I just need a little boost of confidence. But if you go to your parent or you go to your friend, you say, I just need a boost of confidence. Just a little nudge to do the right thing.
How about even this? Hey, send me a nude. Let me think about it.
Yeah.
Let me get back to you. I can't right now. Whatever
I'm
it
busy.
is, we don't have to have the answer right off the bat. But if we don't have the right answer, then we shouldn't be doing the action that goes along with that.
Yeah, I agree.
So slow down a little bit, take a breath, ask that support system, ask a friend, hey, what do you think? Get a second opinion. Because what we think is really cool could come back to haunt us.
Yeah.
So I think it's time, I think we can wrap it up with this.
Yeah.
That it's an important topic. We do believe that communication about it is the key. Are we going to solve every problem by talking about it ahead of time? No. But are we going to empower our kids with some good decision making, some good skills, and good resources to go? I hope so. So if you're not really comfortable about talking about this, if you go to my website, we have safety guides. And I'll have the website up at the end. One of the safety guides we have is, here's a safety guide to sexting. Some of the good, the bad, the ugly when it comes to picture sharing. And maybe this can help you start the conversation with your children about why it's so important. Have the conversation, get involved. If something does cross the line, you have every right to report it to the police if you think something's illegal. You have every right to stay safe. But for the young people watching, my advice, and I'm going to give you the chance to wrap it up today. You wrap up today by advice to the young people. My advice to the young people is you have so much worth and you're such a special person and everybody's got something out there to hold on to. Don't let a picture hurt that future. You have every right to keep yourself safe and say no. Make sure you do that. What's the last bit of advice? And we'll end it with advice to the kids from you.
Going off of that, be confident. Stay strong. Know your worth. A picture does not disappear.
All right. That's Jailene. I'm Scott. We're Internet Safety Concepts. We thank you for your time and watching this. We'll see you soon.